the idea of rights. If I say to you, you are conscious, any response from you would indicate the truthfulness of my statement. There is no argument against it, since any attempt to argue against the statement you are conscious would simply be validating my assessment that you're conscious. The same goes for the statement, you are a rational being. Any response, whether you agree with me or attempt to argue with me, would indicate that you are on some level using rationality. So it is safe to say that if you are watching this video, you are a conscious, rational being. As conscious, rational beings, we each have the desire to not be killed, molested, enslaved, and robbed, which corresponds to murder, assault, or rape, slavery, and theft. If a person permits to be killed, to be aggressively touched, to do things others demand, and to give things in their possession to others, then they are not murdered, assaulted, or raped, enslaved, or robbed. By definition then, murder, assault, rape, enslavement, and theft is killing, molesting, demanding of service, and taking from someone against their will, without their consent. Do you consider murder, assault, rape, enslavement, and theft immoral? Is it wrong to murder someone? Is it wrong to assault or rape someone? Is it wrong to enslave someone? Is it wrong to steal from someone? If so, then you are implicitly affirming every individual's right to not be killed, molested, enslaved, and robbed. You are admitting that it is up to the subject whether or not they can be killed, hit, sexually touched, do things others demand, or be taken from. Think about it. The only way for killing, molesting, demanding of service, and taking things to not be murder, assault, or rape, enslavement, and theft is if a person gives you their consent to do those things to them. Acts of murder, assault, rape, enslavement, and theft are all predicated upon the subject not giving their consent to those acts. Otherwise, they would be voluntary exchanges and would not be immoral. But in order for something to be moral or ethical, it would have to be universal. That is, something that is moral must be applicable to all peoples at all times in every place. A moral precept can't rely on a second person to engage in the very opposite of said moral precept. So let's take the ludicrous idea that it's morally okay to murder, for example. The idea that murder would be morally right doesn't make any sense, actually, because it's impossible for everyone to murder all at the same time, since in order for there to be a murder, there would have to be a victim. The removal of the second person's choice in the matter indicates that the act is no longer universal. For someone to engage in murder, there has to be a second person who is not consenting to that act. So in fact, the very opposite must be true. Murder must be morally wrong, and not murdering must be morally right. Because everyone cannot murder all at the same time. The same principle would apply to assault, rape, enslavement, and theft. It is illogical to assert that assault is morally good, since it is impossible for everyone to assault all at the same time. And in fact, like murder, assault requires that there be a subject that doesn't engage in assault, but is instead the victim. Same goes for rape, enslavement, and theft. Murder, assault, rape, enslavement, and theft cannot be accomplished by everyone all at the same time, and therefore does not meet the universal standard of morality. However, not murdering, not assaulting, not raping, not enslaving, and not stealing can certainly all be achieved universally at all times by everyone in every place. So in response to this, we can say that it is the right of each person to not be murdered, to not be assaulted or raped, and to not be enslaved and to not be stolen from. Put differently, each person has a right to their life, to ownership of their own body, to freedom, and to own their property. A right is a moral and social construct in that it is a principle that is accepted by human beings so we can get along and respect our desire to not be murdered, assaulted, raped, enslaved, and robbed. And again, in order for a principle to be considered a right, it has to be universal. That is, it must apply to all individuals all at the same time in every place. It is universal when it applies to all individuals, and here's another point, it does not depend on others to maintain it, except that they simply do not violate those rights. For you to have a universal right, every other person must also have that same right, and the only obligation placed on others is that they simply do not violate your right. For example, every person at all times and every place can have a right to their own life, and the only obligation placed upon others is a negative one, that they simply do not murder you. They don't have to do anything to keep you alive because you have a right to your own life. The idea of having rights stems from our rationality, much like other areas of knowledge stem from our rationality. The recognition of rights is logical, as I have begun to demonstrate. But one doesn't have to recognize rights, much in the same way that one does not have to recognize the scientific method if one so chooses. However, the person who does not recognize the scientific method would find it difficult to come up with scientific knowledge. So too, the one who does not recognize the idea of rights would find it difficult to have a moral society, a society free from murder, assault, rape, enslavement, and theft. So I concede that I believe in these rights because I want to have a moral society, much in the same way that I believe in the scientific method because I want there to be scientific knowledge. If you believe that murder, assault, rape, enslavement, and theft are concepts that should be recognized, then you must believe that we should also affirm the concept that human beings have rights to life, to own themselves, to be free, and to fully own their property. If we do not each have a right to live, then nothing is being violated when someone kills another. Killing someone would be no different than turning off a machine. But if we are rational beings who have the will to live, then we have a right to our own life, to decide for ourselves whether we live or die. Similarly, if people do not own themselves, then there would not be anything wrong with hitting anyone or forcing yourself sexually upon another. The fact that there is such a thing as the ability to not consent to such actions means that there is the possibility of assault and rape. If you're not free to do as you please within limits, then you cannot object to someone making you do something. Not consenting to a demand from others is what makes enslavement possible. And if you do not have a right to fully own your property, then you could not say that something was yours or object to other people taking the things in your possession. The fact that you alone dictate who uses your property and how it is used is what makes the idea of theft possible. So if you concede that human beings have these rights, since without recognizing them we cannot have basic morality, then why not join me in figuring out how human beings can enjoy these rights as much as possible without violating these same rights in others? Imagine a society where everyone recognizes the immorality of murder, assault, rape, enslavement, and theft. If you can begin to imagine a society like this, then you're on your way to becoming a libertarian, and you can begin to see the legitimacy of voluntarism or anarchism. Thanks so much for watching, and for more videos, click on the subscribe link below or visit youtube.com/LibertyNiagara and click on the subscribe link there. The plan is to build a website for Liberty Niagara, so if you'd like to help us in this area, please head on over to messianicniagara.com and click on the donate link, and you can send me any amount and it will help me to develop a website for Liberty Niagara. Thanks again for watching.